they made the choice, and so moving forward.
I think we can all agree that that was an F.
He's been a leader. He's been the point guard. He's been the one that has opinions.
The entire league was still stunned after Chris Paul got pushed out of the Clippers in one of the coldest moves anyone had ever seen, but nobody was ready for how wild things were about to get. James Harden and Kawhi Leonard cracked the whole story open when they hinted that Ty Lue might have played a part in the whole mess. And what's hiding behind it all is straight up unbelievable. Picture the scene. It's 3 a.m. Eastern Time on December 4th, 2025. The Clippers are in Atlanta on a road trip, knocked out in their hotel before facing the Hawks the next night. Everybody's out cold except Chris Paul, the 12-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA guard, and the dude with more assists than anyone not named John Stockton.
CP3 is CP3. He's been Chris Paul for 21 years, 21 seasons. He's been a leader. He's been the point guard. He's been the one that has opinions. He was brought into the Spurs to elevate Wemby and be that veteran leadership. He was in OKC with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, teaching him how to run the squad and things like that. Obviously stops in Golden State. Chris Paul is Chris Paul. So as an organization, if you thought that he was going to come in and not say anything, then I think that that's not being aligned from the front office to the coaching staff to the locker room. And with that being said, I think losing exposes.
And he's wide awake because he just got told his run with the Los Angeles Clippers, the place where he helped build the whole Lob City legacy, is officially done. And here's where it gets wild. Chris Paul didn't get the news in a sit-down with ownership or some respectful call from the top. He got hit with it during a tense, draining 3-hour conversation with Clippers president Lawrence Frank right there in that Atlanta hotel room. 3 hours of pressure, frustration, and awkward energy, and the second it wrapped up, CP3 didn't wait for any official announcement. He hopped on Instagram and broke the whole thing himself. A reporter from Basketball Bulletin summed it up perfectly when the story exploded online, and fans went crazy trying to wrap their heads around how messy the whole situation looked.
Here it is. Here's Ramona Shelburne. She posted it onto X. Just found out I'm being sent home. Peace.
Just found out I'm being sent home. Peace is all Chris Paul posted, with that peace sign emoji.
The NBA and Los Angeles Clippers, who are now 5-16 and a complete disaster. They announced this morning that Chris Paul is no longer a part of their team. The Clippers sent Paul back to LA from Atlanta on a one-way ticket. My sense of this is that it's on the general manager and the coach. Okay, they stink. They have lost 14 of their last 16 games.
And those few words shook the entire basketball world like an earthquake. One short message from one of the greatest point guards ever, and instantly his return to the Clippers collapsed in the most unbelievable way imaginable. But here's where it jumps to a whole new level of chaos. James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, the faces of the franchise, the pillars of the Clippers, had absolutely no idea any of this was happening behind the scenes. Think about that for a second. Harden and Leonard, the two leaders of the squad, found out about Chris Paul's release the exact same way everybody else did, straight from social media. They woke up, checked their phones, and boom, the whole world was on fire. No call from the front office, no heads up from Ty Lue, nothing from anybody on the coaching staff. Nobody in the organization thought maybe our stars should know before we send a future Hall of Famer home overnight. The whole thing went down in complete silence. And when the media got to Harden and Leonard after the Clippers beat the Hawks 115-92 later that night, their expressions told the whole story. You could see the confusion, the frustration, the disbelief, everything. Reporters swarmed instantly, trying to peel back every layer of what was happening inside that locker room. James Harden, who used to dominate the backcourt with Chris Paul during their run in Houston, didn't hold anything back. He told reporters, "I'm just as confused and shocked as you guys. The world definitely surprised me, but not just Chris. It's a lot that we were dealing with, but that is out of my hands. I gotta focus on what I got to focus on and what I can control." I guess the front office felt that was the best decision for the organization.
I don't have a side, I don't like it, it just didn't work out like we thought it would, and like I said, I don't like it for CP, but it just wasn't a good fit, we understood that, and so, like I said, it was an organization, they made the choice, and so moving forward, we got to see what we do, so, we'll see.
Leonard is on a minute restriction, and sources told me that when he was guarding Klay Thompson, he was struggling when he got into the game after sitting down for a while. He was struggling keeping up with Klay Thompson. And so there was a timeout call late in that fourth quarter. And during the fourth quarter, during that timeout, Chris Paul went to Kawhi Leonard and said, hey, man, are you fresh enough? Do you feel good? Do you feel like you can stick with Klay Thompson? And he asked the teammates, he said, hey, y'all might want to switch this. Wait till he gets warm until he goes and guards Klay.
But the real spark came when Harden slipped in that one line. Not just Chris, it's a lot that we were dealing with. That comment cracked the door wide open. He basically let everyone know that something way deeper is happening behind closed doors with the Clippers. And this whole thing isn't just about Chris Paul being sent home. This wasn't just drama. This was a full-blown storm brewing behind the curtains of the Clippers organization. Harden's comments made it sound like the squad had been dealing with some real problems for a minute, and the front office thought cutting CP3 loose would magically solve everything. Then Kawhi Leonard stepped in, and that's when things got even more serious. Kawhi barely talks, but even he couldn't hide how stunned he was. He called the move shocking to me, and what made it even wilder was that he revealed he had just been having solid conversations with Paul about how to boost chemistry and tighten up their execution on the floor. Imagine that.
And so I was told that Jeff Van Gundy told Chris Paul, listen, you might have had leeway in other places to be able to, to change up defensive coverages, but you don't have that leeway here. And that was just one of the minor verbal incidents between Jeff Van Gundy and Chris Paul. That was one of a few.
I mean, just speaking on this specific incident that Chris is talking about, I've had those conversations with guys as we're leaving the huddle. Hey, let's try to look at this. Let's try to look at that. That's based on the trust that I've built with those guys, and that's based on the trust that I've built with the coaching staff. I am one of those guys that I will refuse to let one guy take down 15.
And so when you think about, and we hear these stories about, oh, Ty Lue wasn't speaking to him, or he wouldn't take a meeting with him, or they wasn't on speaking terms for 3 weeks, it gets you to thinking, what the hell was CP3 doing? You get sent home at 3 o'clock in the morning? What the hell were you doing in that locker room? Because it wasn't just because of that event. That situation that happened. It was stuff that was that kept building up throughout the course of the season. He was doing stuff behind Ty Lue's back, going to players, whispering, saying things, and causing turmoil when the team is already struggling and going through a lot.
Kawhi and Chris were literally building a plan to flip the season around, trying to bring the team together and make the run work again. Then out of nowhere, Chris gets sent home like he suddenly turned into some kind of problem they didn't want around anymore. That's unreal. Some people tried to say Harden and Kawhi should have stepped in, but the analysts on PTI didn't hold back. They said the players weren't the issue. They made it clear the whole mess started way above them. Now we have to dig into how this whole situation turned into a full disaster, because the way everything unfolded almost sounds like a storyline, not something happening in real life. For weeks, the tension behind the scenes had been simmering, with Chris Paul speaking louder than he ever had about accountability across the organization. He wasn't just checking teammates, he was pressing coaches and even calling out management, and that bold energy rubbed a lot of folks the wrong way. That pressure built fast between Chris Paul and head coach Ty Lue. Reports claimed the two hadn't spoken for weeks before Paul was cut loose, and that silence spoke louder than anything they could have said out loud. Meanwhile, the Clippers were stuck in a nightmare start to the 2025-26 season, sitting at a rough 6-16 record, second worst in the entire Western Conference.
Do I want to see CP go out like this? No, I have a lot of respect for him. He's been a friend of mine over the years, and you never want to see a great go out, like this, but I'm pretty sure he will find something because he's a great player. And so, I didn't want to see it end like this.
Really layered situation, clearly. So what's next for CP3?
Well, I reached out to Chris Paul. He hasn't spoke yet, but I did reach out to him and asked him that very question. And he sent me a response back. And in his text message response, he said, I'm just staying ready. I'm hooping right now. I don't know what's next.
It's kind of wild, kind of crazy. Still kind of speechless. I'll probably have a lot of words later with my family. You sort of just taking it, the whole experience in right now. This is one of those things I kind of manifested for a long time, sort of tried to speak it into existence, but you just never know if it's really gonna happen, because I love to hoop. I love to play this game, but I love my family more than any of it.
And to make things even uglier, they couldn't tank for a reset because their draft pick belonged to the Oklahoma City Thunder, so they were losing non-stop, couldn't rebuild, and the locker room energy was falling apart fast. Now that we know Harden and Leonard had zero clue this move was coming, it's finally time to look at what really blew the whole thing up behind the scenes, because the rumored fallout between Paul and Ty Lue is the centerpiece of this chaos. Insiders said Paul and Lue barely talked and only interacted when absolutely necessary during games. Ty Lue publicly shut that rumor down, saying firmly, "That's not true," when asked if communication had broken down. But everything coming out afterward painted a very different picture, full of tension and quiet disagreements that ran deeper than anyone thought. When Ty Lue finally spoke on the situation, his words were careful but low-key revealing. He said that even though he didn't like how things ended, the fit just wasn't right anymore. And that one line raised even more questions about what really happened between him and Chris Paul. Listen to that closely. It just wasn't a good fit. That's Ty Lue basically admitting that even with all the excitement around Chris coming back to LA, his intense leadership style didn't mesh with what the Clippers were trying to build. And the details leaking out about clashes with the staff made everything even clearer. One report pointed out a moment involving assistant coach Jeff Van Gundy that showed how real the tension was. In a game against the Mavericks, Kawhi Leonard was on a minutes limit and had trouble keeping up with Klay Thompson after being on the bench for a stretch. During a late timeout, Chris Paul went over to Kawhi and suggested they switch defensive assignments until Kawhi fully warmed up again. NBA insider Chris Haynes broke down that moment, and it showed just how strained things had gotten inside that Clippers huddle. It wasn't just a small misunderstanding, it was a sign that the whole situation was boiling over. Here's where things get real interesting.
This is Chris Paul, this is CP3. And Lawrence Frank is already on the record talking about, we're not blaming him. You lost 5 straight. You lost 5 straight. You see that tweet right there that Chris Paul just put out in the middle of the night. Just found out I'm being sent home. This is Chris Paul, the former president of the Players Association, 21st season, 12-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA selection, member of the 75th anniversary team, former Rookie of the Year, 6-time steals leader. I think to send him home is so damn disrespectful that I'm still looking at the organization, which is the Clippers, which, by the way, deserves to be vilified. First of all, you Lawrence Frank, he was brought there as an assistant coach under Doc Rivers. How is it that you go from an assistant coach to Doc Rivers, who, by the way, was running basketball operations and was the head coach of the Clippers, to all of a sudden being put over Doc Rivers as the head of basketball operations? And ultimately, Doc Rivers is gone. You talk about something, I don't know about, at the very least, we could say that smells. At the very least.
The very next day, while the team was on the plane, Jeff Van Gundy pulled Chris Paul aside for a one-on-one and straight up asked him if he had switched the defensive assignment. Chris told him he didn't change anything. He only suggested an adjustment to help the team get through that tough stretch. But Van Gundy's reaction said everything without him even needing to raise his voice. According to Chris Haynes, that conversation turned confrontational almost instantly, proving just how tense the energy behind the scenes had become. Did you catch that line? You might have had leeway in other places, but you don't have that leeway here. That one sentence exposes the entire power dynamic inside the Clippers locker room. The coaching staff was basically telling a future Hall of Famer, a 12-time All-Star with over 2 decades of elite point guard experience, that his leadership and basketball IQ weren't welcome in their system anymore. And Chris Paul wasn't letting that slide quietly. He went on Instagram and posted a screenshot of the definition of the word leeway, a quiet but sharp clapback showing exactly how fed up he was with how he was being handled. The crew on NBA on Prime broke it down perfectly, saying communication like this between coaches and players should be normal, not some heated back and forth that blows up into drama. Udonis Haslem, a veteran who knows locker rooms better than almost anyone, stressed that everything begins with trust. And once trust cracks, situations like this can explode fast. But the allegations didn't stop there. Multiple sources, including former players and people close to the team, said Chris Paul's constant critiques about practices, rotations, and overall discipline were starting to wear down both Harden and Leonard. Reports claimed the two stars had grown tired of Paul's style, even though they publicly acted shocked when he got released. And then Kendrick Perkins chimed in with his own take, and this guy knows locker room politics better than most. Perkins explained that for Ty Lue to reach a point where he wasn't speaking to a player player at all. Something serious had to happen behind closed doors. That kind of silence doesn't come out of nowhere. It only shows up when things have already passed the breaking point. Let's be real, we're hearing different angles, and the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But one thing is clear, Ty Lue admitted he didn't want Chris Paul's run with the team to fall apart like this. He showed real respect for Paul while also admitting the dynamic simply wasn't working anymore. And when reporters asked if he wanted CP3's career to take a turn like this, Lue's answer was honest and heavy, showing he understood how tough the whole moment truly was. Now the big question everyone keeps asking is this: was Ty Lue actually involved in the decision to send Chris Paul home, or did Lawrence Frank and the front office handle everything on their own? When reporters pressed Lue about whether he agreed with the move and whether he thought it would help the team, his response caught the entire NBA world off guard. Ty Lue didn't sugarcoat anything when he said, "I don't think it'll necessarily help our team. I don't think the reason why we're 5-16 is because of Chris." That's a bold statement from a head coach, and it basically confirmed that cutting Chris Paul wasn't some magic reset button.
Where is Lawrence Frank's office? Where is his office at? Do you know?
Well, they got a brand new.
So it's not in the locker room. It's not in the locker room, basically.
It's not.
Okay, so he shouldn't be in nothing that got to do with locker room conversation. This is our sanctuary. This is our sanctuary. This is the coaches. This is the guys that come to practice every day.
After 21 freaking years, you don't do that to him. This is Chris Paul. This is CP3.
The Clippers' problems run way deeper than any one veteran speaking his mind. They're sitting near the bottom of the league on offense at 111.6 points per game, while giving up 116.8 on defense. And on top of that, Kawhi Leonard has already missed key time with injuries. This team's struggles aren't about one roster move. The issues stretch through the entire system, from chemistry to consistency to coaching decisions. So now the question hanging over the league is simple: what's next? This situation exploded way bigger than anyone thought, and the fallout is shaking up conversations everywhere. Let's start with Chris Paul. Even after all the drama, he's handled everything like a true pro. In an exclusive People magazine interview on December 9th, he said, "I'm at peace with everything," and added that he has zero regrets. He even talked about how stepping away unexpectedly has given him rare time with his family, including being present for his son's upcoming game, something he doesn't always get to do during the grind of a long NBA season. And when NBA insider Chris Haynes checked in to see what CP3 planned next, Chris didn't hesitate for a second. The future Hall of Famer made it clear he's staying locked in, staying ready, and waiting for the next opportunity that comes his way. He said, "I don't regret anything," and you could tell he truly meant it. He's looking at this moment as another chapter in his long journey, not something to sit around stressing about. And honestly, that mindset is exactly what you'd expect from someone who has played 21 seasons, survived trade after trade, faced doubts non-stop, and still carried himself with professionalism and class every step of the way. But here's the part that really hits deep. Chris Paul already announced that the 2025-26 season would be his final run in the NBA. When he signed with the Clippers in July 2025, he saw it as the perfect full circle ending, a return to Los Angeles for one last chapter in the city where his legacy took off. This was supposed to be his victory lap, his storybook finale, and instead it turned into one of the most abrupt and unceremonious exits the NBA has seen in years. When CP3 first arrived back in LA, the emotion was real. He spoke openly about how much the moment meant to him and his family, and how grateful he felt to finish his career where he built so much of his identity as a player. That's what makes the way everything unfolded so tough to swallow. Now let's talk about Chris Paul's next move, because the rumors are flying everywhere right now. He becomes trade eligible on December 15th, 2025, and suddenly half the league looks like a possibility. The Lakers are getting buzz because of his longtime friendship with LeBron James. The Oklahoma City Thunder makes sense too. Paul had a strong run there, mentoring Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and fans still respect him heavy. Betting odds even have the Cleveland Cavaliers as an early favorite, with the Spurs and the Heat also popping up as potential fits. But the biggest conversation isn't even about where he might go. It's about how he was treated on the way out. People across the league are fired up, and Stephen A. Smith didn't hold back at all when talking about a resume like Chris Paul's, saying a player with that kind of legacy deserved way more respect than a late-night send-off. The real story here is what this whole situation says about the Los Angeles Clippers as an organization. Draymond Green straight up warned players across the league that this shows how even respected veterans can get treated like they're disposable. And that kind of message can scare off future free agents in a heartbeat. Carmelo Anthony called the Clippers' approach disrespectful, and Stephen A. Smith went even harder, labeling the entire process pathetic and embarrassing, making it clear the organization deserved every bit of criticism for how they handled Chris Paul's exit. Now we have to look at the deeper organizational problems that have been dragging this franchise down for years, because Chris Paul's situation is just a symptom of something way bigger. Back in 2019, the Clippers gave up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, 5 first-round picks, and 2 pick swaps for Paul George. And now George is in Philadelphia while the Clippers got nothing back. They also threw more players and picks into the deal for James Harden and extended Kawhi Leonard on massive contracts despite his long list of injuries. And what's the result? A team sitting at 6-18 with the oldest roster in the league and their main star only available part-time because of load management. Stephen A. didn't hold back. He even questioned how Lawrence Frank climbed into such a powerful position within the organization and criticized the decisions made under his watch. According to him and plenty of others, the Clippers' issues run way deeper than one veteran being sent home in the middle of the night. Talk about a franchise curse. It's blown up again, with many pointing to the Clippers' long history of chaos, from the Donald Sterling scandal to non-stop playoff collapses. One writer even said the franchise isn't just unlucky, they keep the curse alive by making moves like pushing out Chris Paul for caring too much about winning. On NBA on Prime, the panel locked in on a major concern: how decisions are actually being made inside that building. Udonis Haslem stressed that real locker room problems should be handled by the people who are in that locker room every single day, not by meetings happening miles away from the team. So what's the real verdict here? We have to admit there are different angles to this story, and nothing about it is simple. Chris Paul is a demanding leader with extremely high standards, and his style works great with young squads that want that discipline and structure. But on a veteran-heavy team like the Clippers, a group full of established stars with their own rhythms and routines, his approach might have clashed hard. But even if that's true, the way the Clippers handled the situation was totally out of line. You don't send a future Hall of Famer home in the middle of the night during a road trip. You don't break the news in a 3-hour hotel meeting in Atlanta like you're dismissing some rookie who just signed a 10-day contract. A player with 21 years in this league deserves real respect. You bring him back to Los Angeles, sit down with him and his family, talk things through, and work out a professional, respectful exit so he can step away on his own terms. Stephen A. Smith captured what the entire basketball world felt when he spoke on how a veteran of Paul's caliber was treated after 21 freaking years, making it clear this should have never gone down like that. But that's not how it played out, and now the Clippers are stuck with the fallout. Their decision hurt their reputation, frustrated their fans, and sent a loud message to every future free agent about how this organization treats its veteran stars. Meanwhile, James Harden and Kawhi Leonard are caught right in the middle, trying to find ways to win games while outside noise and inside tension keep building. Their shock looked real, but it makes you wonder how much they actually knew or didn't know about what was really happening behind the scenes. The Chris Paul chapter in Clippers history has closed on a rough and unexpected note, and nobody knows exactly what comes next for CP3, the Clippers, or anyone tied to this story. But one thing is for sure, the basketball world won't be forgetting this situation anytime soon. So how do you feel about everything that went down? Was Chris Paul treated unfairly, or was this just another harsh part of the business? And where do you think he should head next? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I want to hear what you're thinking. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure you like, share, and subscribe to BallScope for more wild NBA drama and deep dives. Hit that button and stay locked in so you don't miss the next breakdown. Catch you in the next one. Peace.